Hey team, welcome back to another episode of the Strength Game Podcast. I'm your host, Nick O'Brien, and this is episode number 154. The Strength Game is a weekly podcast dedicated to discussing all things physical culture, with the coaches, athletes, iron enthusiasts, and experts deeply embedded in the strength game on both sides of the profession, both as coaches and as competitive athletes. I want to thank everyone who has liked, shared, commented, has subscribed to the show. All your support allows us to continue to bring on expert guests and highlight more individuals in the strength game, just like our guest today. I also want to take this time to thank all our sponsors. Samson Equipment provides first-class weight rooms and has earned an exceptional reputation in providing the finest quality design and customer service. Being a direct manufacturer, the team at Samson brings full customization capabilities and not only branding, but in custom equipment needed to execute your next project. From barbells, plates, racks, dumbbells, flooring storage, benches, and much more. Samson equipment is durable and made to order from premium grade materials, all built from scratch, start to finish. Samson Equipment provides professional weight room solutions for all your strength and conditioning needs. See the Samson standard for yourself and learn more at samsonequipment.com. Also want to thank our sponsor, Cerberus Strength. Cerberus is truly an organization that puts the athlete first and actively works towards providing the best quality gear at an affordable price. Owned and operated by active lifters, Cerberus has quickly evolved into a global brand, symbolizing quality and trust. Their ever-growing product range is used by the top athletes around the world at the highest level of competition, and every single Cerberus strength product has been designed with performance in mind, with the highest attention to detail. So if you're in the market for the highest quality strength and conditioning gear and strongman equipment, be sure to check out CerberusStrength.com and use promo code STRENGTH_game to receive an extra 10% off your next order. Also want to thank our sponsor, Sport Kilt. The kilt is a tradition dating back centuries. Worn by nobles, military, and fashionistas, the kilt has been through it all, at times banned and at other times celebrated. For over 25 years, Sport Kilt has been striving to perfect their version of the Scottish classic to create the ultimate garment of fashion and function. Sport Kilt offers a wide range of universal and clanton tartans, as well as custom sport kilts and an excellent selection of accessories and apparel to complement the kilt wear. Check out the full line of kilts and join the kilt life at sportkilt.com and be sure to use promo code TSG to save on your next order. And in this week's episode, I am joined by Alex D. Alex is an assistant sports performance coach at the University of Illinois, Chicago, where he oversees the training for the baseball, track and field, cross country, and swimming programs. Joining the Flames in summer 2025, D previously spent the last 2 years as an assistant director of sports performance at Wichita State University, where he worked directly with the baseball, men's tennis, and women's tennis programs. D joined the Shockers staff in 2023 after spending the previous 2 seasons in a similar capacity at Oral Roberts University. He has had multiple stops early in his career as an intern coach at the University of Denver in 2021, Clemson University with the Olympic staff in 2020, Marquette University in 2019, and his alma mater, the University of Illinois at Chicago in 2018. A former college baseball player at the University of Illinois at Chicago, he is still active himself in the weight room and continues to train, explore new ideas and methodologies throughout the college year to stay active and better coach his student athletes. Like I said, I'm excited to have him on the show today. So with all that said, let's get in the game with Coach Alex D. What's going on, everybody? Today I'm excited. We are joined by Coach Alex D. How you doing today?
Coach, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Hey, I'm excited to have you on. We met both of us at our old previous jobs. We've been trying to link this up for a while. I'm excited. We're pre-recording before Christmas, but kind of cool. We're just switching places for Christmas. You're coming down to Florida. I'm going up to Illinois. I think you're getting the better end of the weather deal. Um, but hey, man, I'm excited to have you on the show today. So let's get the thing rolling with kind of the first thing that got everybody started into coaching. Like, what really got you started in playing sports? Like, what was your first introduction to the weight room to got you to your current place now?
So I grew up playing tons of different sports. My family's kind of always been a baseball family. So baseball was just like something that I played initially growing up. But I played a ton growing like my early years. And then in high school, I was mainly just football and baseball. I tried wrestling my freshman year, and that was actually when I got introduced to the weight room for the first time. So my wrestling coach was also the football coach. And so he basically just pulled me in and had me try it out. And I hated wrestling, but I got introduced to lifting, which obviously is something that I ended up loving. So that was really sweet. Did that my freshman fall, I guess, or winter. Didn't do wrestling my sophomore year, but basically just continued to train from then on out. I kind of experienced right away like the benefits of lifting. Like I could see it like in baseball. My coaches were like, "Wow, you look like you put on a little bit of size." And I was a small freshman, and eventually got bigger and bigger as I continued lifting. But really, just high school was like my first exposure to the weight room. I had a high school strength coach who taught me like the basic like Olympic lifting variations, things along those lines. And then one of my really good buddies was pretty built for somebody that was in high school, and he like knew weight room stuff. And so I just kind of followed him and just did whatever he did. So when I got to college, I was already pretty set up, I think, for, a college weight room. Like I understood like a lot of stuff, I guess, but I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do. Um, and I came in as a kinesiology major, again, just kind of having that idea of like I love to train, don't really know what I want to do with it. And then my sophomore year, I had Tommy John. So had to redshirt and just spent so much time with my strength and conditioning coach and our athletic trainers. And really just like that was when like the light bulbs like switched in my head. I'm like, okay, this is something that I want to do. Like I saw the impact that those two had on me, not just in the weight room and performance wise, but just like as a person, like they genuinely cared about me. They wanted to, help me like get back to who I was before. And so that year off of baseball was pretty much just training and being around those people in my life helped me, really figure out, I guess, like kind of my identity and like what I was trying to do. And coaching felt like it was something that I really wanted to do. So that sophomore year kind of flipped it and basically said, yeah, I want to be a strength coach. Didn't really know again to what capacity, if that was going to be private sector or college, whatever it was. And so my strength coach, Nick Zostatis, he had some connections places, sent me off to Marquette for a summer, really loved that. Came back, started my master's program, went to Clemson during COVID, and then finished up my master's, got my CSCS, went out to University of Denver, was there for a few months, can't remember exactly how long, but it was basically like an unpaid internship that turned into a paid internship. And then from there, I got my first full-time job at Oral Roberts University. Was there for 2 years and then went to Wichita State for the last 2 years. And now I wound back up here at UIC where I played baseball. So kind of a full circle thing. It's really cool. Like I was actually just talking to Nick Z the other day on the phone. I was like sitting in his desk. I was like, Nick, this is crazy. Like I'm the strength coach for baseball. Um, so yeah, it's been wild, but it was just like constantly being around sports, getting introduced to training, loving it, seeing like, what I could do for myself performance wise, but then also like seeing how much this position can impact other people. That really just shaped me.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's definitely a cool kind of full circle moment to at that time not even realize that you were gonna eventually make your way back to like where it all kind of started. And you kind of realizing where you wanted to be a coach, and now you're in your old coaches, like your first coach's seat, like in college. It's crazy. And that story is also like resonates with a lot of strength coaches, it seems. Like that injury inevitably kind of happens, or like you start realizing your full potential and you kind of see the impact of what the weight room has on your performance and kind of your development. But then you also said too, like all the people that kind of helped you with that injury like that you had in sophomore year, trying to get back onto the field and actually get back to the thing that you really enjoyed and got you to go to that school in the first place. Um, and that's awesome that you get to be able to kind of do that and still stay involved. And someone took a vested interest in you and kind of pointed you in the right direction. I think a lot of coaches sometimes don't get that in the very beginning, but you also don't get that unless you're kind of showing, giving it back too, and you're passionate about learning about the profession, like actually invested yourself in trying to get involved more. I know you kind of touched on like your old coach and then just kind of bouncing around to learn and get more internship experience and see what other places are doing. What what do you think was like the most important thing that kind of prepared you for like a full-time role? Because obviously like internships are great, like each of them are kind of different. I mean, you bounced around like to like Denver, back to the East Coast, like up in the Midwest and everything too. So different kind of conferences, like different levels of ability and play and things like that. But what do you think kind of helped you the most when you first got to ORU and like had your first job full time?
I always give credit to Denver, as like the place that really changed me as a coach. But I mean, my first two internships, Marquette and Clemson, like I learned a ton of valuable things from those two. So I have a master's in kinesiology, but a lot of that wasn't necessarily tailored to being a strength coach. Like it was exercise physiology, like didn't really, I took a CSCS class, but other than that, like there was just basic stuff. So like those two internships were a lot of like the curriculum based internships. And so I learned a lot there. I even like in the Marquette one, that was where I really learned how to like write a resume and like do some interview things, like stuff like that. So the relationships I built there, the Marquette's head strength coach, his birthday was actually yesterday. So I texted him, so like I still have good relationships with these coaches. So I can't necessarily say that like one internship was, the most beneficial because these coaches that I've met and the relationships I've built, like I still have, and they've helped me, you know, either get interviews somewhere else or I've called them and asked them questions later on when I maybe didn't know the question to ask when I was in that internship, but maybe have that question now. Um, but at Denver, that was the first time I got like real experience coaching. At the other internships, like, I'd run a warm up or I'd, basically just like cue somebody in the weight room. But at Denver, that was like the first real time of coaching. I was there as that unpaid intern, like I was saying, and one of the strength coaches left, and so there was a vacant spot essentially, and he was in charge of volleyball and men's lacrosse, and so they were in the process of hiring a new strength coach, but for that, month and a half, 2 months time frame, they didn't have anybody. And so I was the only one of the interns that had the CSCS and basically just like had shown and, earned some trust from the director there. And he basically was like, hey, these are your teams. Like it's the summer, it's gonna be a little bit more low key, like it's pretty much already programmed out. Like there's only gonna be a handful of athletes. Like I want you to run these two teams. And so basically, I just ran the two teams, and that was essentially what gave me the real life experience to, succeed on my first full-time job because I was interviewing at some places and, you know, I mean, even when I've interviewed people now too, it's like you want experience, right? Like they can have a really good resume and like be at good places, have good connections, but like if, you have two people that went to the same caliber schools, but one of them actually coached and one of them was an intern, like you're going to go with the one with the experience. So I was struggling to find some spots and I took it more of a non-traditional route, I would say, to get into my first full-time job because I was playing baseball the whole time I was in my master's. Like I had Tommy John that sophomore year, so I had a redshirt year. And then I was actually part of COVID, so I got the COVID year. So I played the entire time during my master's. I would have gone and done a GA somewhere had I not had that 6th year of baseball. So I didn't have any of that full time. So the University of Denver internship really set me up because I got to lead teams and I could talk about that and speak about, the things that I learned, how I, train certain athletes. And obviously I was still helping with all the other sports too. So it was like, hockey, soccer, basketball, all the sports that I was still working with on top of leading my own teams.
Yeah, it might be in a different kind of path than a lot of people take, like just being able to play those many years, especially through grad school. because some people are going to grad school and actually that's the first time they actually get to coach if you played 4 or 5 years of like college athletics. So you're kind of now solidified in, okay, I'm rounding out my master's this last year, these last 2 years, or like if you're a fall sport, these last 3 semesters, I can really start to dive more into the application. But yeah, you got that COVID year and a redshirt year, and your focus is training through the fall to get ready to play baseball in the spring. So you're kind of preoccupied trying to get all that time. So all these internships that you get out after, it's not that you're cramming, but you're looking to try to gain some experience and some weight room, floor time, especially. And it's awesome that even curriculum-based places like, I mean, you went to like three of like probably the more well-known like internship like heavy like universities that we talk about like Springfield, Salisbury, like Marquette, Clemson, Denver, Elon. It seems like those ones are kind of really well known for that and having kind of a step-by-step basis of like, this is how we're going to develop coaches. At the end of the day, you still got to be able to coach. But that you're right. Like putting apples to apples, someone next to each other for resumes, you're going to look at someone that has experience and you have to go out and get it in order to actually qualify for that job. But to your point, you earn that from a coach and you build that trust by actually doing the small things right that an intern would do. So then when a crazy opportunity like someone leaving or a coach really recognizes all the work you're putting in, now it's your time to kind of shine and it's trial by fire. Is that kind of how it is with maybe some of the younger coaches you've seen come into, like the ones that you're trying to like bring up and shape and explain how the professions kind of run? Or how does it kind of work with your guys' department trying to run stuff at UIC?
So we don't really have like anything crazy when it comes to interns. Like we have some like student interns that usually don't know if they want to be strength coaches or not. So we kind of just ask them in the beginning, like, what do you want to get out of this? And then we'll tailor it to that essentially. So if it's somebody that essentially just wants the class credit, then, you know, we'll still try to teach them things, obviously, but it's different than if somebody's like, hey, like I want to be a strength coach. And that's like, okay, well, we'll take you under our wing and we'll teach you everything that we, know. But I guess that would be like something I would tell that person right away is like make sure you're looking for opportunities to like learn and coach. Like you need to know how to coach. And you touched on it too, but I always say like you can write the best program on paper of all time, but if you don't know how to coach it, like your athletes aren't going to receive it the way that you want it to be received and they're not going to get anything out of it. So um like some of the best coaches might not be the smartest people or like have the, best X's and O's program, but they know how to coach and they can do things really well, coaching wise, and they'll get good results from their athletes.
Yeah, that's kind of the same way. Like if anybody else would have took that program that you had at Denver and when you kind of stepped in for that summer, like it's just exercises and reps and sets on a piece of paper until you really kind of take charge of that. Like it really is all up to you at that point to
Give
make
me one sec.
sure.
The light shut off. Sorry.
There we go.
The old motion sensor lights in here.
There you go. Got to save the money. Hey, but yeah, like at the end of the day, that program doesn't come alive until you are coaching it. And anybody else could have taken a different direction. And that's why a lot of sport coaches, I don't think they realize it when they're starting to ask for all these details of a program and like they want to see what the players are doing. At the end of the day, like it's really how you get buy-in from them, how you execute all those little things, the non-negotiable stuff and the standards that you set for them and how you coach those reps is what makes the difference with them. How do you go about like practically kind of setting up like your kind of non-negotiables, like your standards and training, especially like coming to UIC like this year being your first full year as a full-time coach there now? How do you kind of like lay the groundwork in the very beginning, knowing that that coaching and how you handle stuff is going to be a little bit more important than just the program right off the bat?
Yeah, so it makes it a ton of fun, honestly. Like being somewhere new. Like this is now my third school, and I'd hope that I've learned from each new start somewhere. Because yeah, that first time when I was at ORU, like I just got thrown into the fire. I actually got hired in October, so basketball season was essentially already there. Um, but yeah, I mean, it starts with just being clear. Like clear is the best way you can do it. So being clear with your expectations, your standards, having um, consistent language with the coaches, but also the way that I talk and explain things to my athletes. And then really just comes down to once I explain those things to the best of my ability to basically just reinforce that all the time. Whatever I allow is eventually what's going to be made in the weight room. So, um, yeah, I guess the practical side of it is just be as clear as possible from day one of like what I want. And like we have at UIC, we have like a set weight room rules and standards, things along those lines. And then each team kind of has their own as well. So just going through those like step by step. And sometimes it's tedious, sometimes it's annoying, but like just making sure that everybody knows so they're all on the same page. And then once it comes to the actual weight room coaching of things, like there's certain things that I want to be done, like certain exercises to look certain ways. And um, especially the first year at a program, I like to just set the bar really, really low and almost act like nobody knows what they're doing. Even if they're really, really like advanced, they can progress out of it faster, obviously. But I again, just want to start things really slow and set the standard from day one.
Yeah, that's a great way to do it too, because you can meet kind of that goal right off the bat, and then you could start to build with the program. And like I'd argue that you could do it both ways. You could also set like a really high standard and then have everybody get to that standard and attain it. But if you don't really have a good idea for the team and like what the makeup of it is, you could end up losing everybody too, and no one actually jumping on board because you're the new guy.
Yeah.
Everybody else is coming back in except for like some of the freshmen, and they're going to go where the head sport coach says to go, and they're going to follow the lead of all the upperclassmen that they're interacting with and roommates with all the time. So kind of setting it slower and starting to build, like kind of stack those good wins as you're starting to develop and got a feel for what the team looks like is kind of a great approach. When you're talking about like meshing like together, like what you view as important and kind of like your expectations for the weight room, like as a strength coach, you're kind of in between, you're wearing so many hats and you're in between all these different kind of feelings and like thought processes that like are sometimes outside of maybe your full control, because you're working for a head strength coach, their kind of weight room and like what the established rules look like. You're working for a sport coach who has established rules too, and like kind of how they want their team to be spoken to or like things carried out in some sort of manner. And then you have your own kind of non-negotiables and expectations. How do you kind of make sure that like yours are still kind of embedded into those two? And then like if there's any issues or like anything that maybe conflicts with another, how do you kind of try to bring that up and address it with those two other people to like deconflict that situation?
Wow, that's a good question because it's hard. I mean, it's definitely not easy. Especially working with like I've got baseball, track, cross country, and swim. So essentially four teams, four different coaches, different leadership styles. I mean, the athletes' personalities are all different too. So I think um, I guess to blend the like sport coaches' expectations and rules and standards with the weight room, that's probably you just have to do it based on each team. Like there's going to be the firm standards of the weight room, like those will not change based on the team. But like the how the head coach wants certain things run, whether that's like more competitions, more challenges, or like just bury them kind of like attitude, like that's going to change, from team to team. My own set, I guess, standards that I have for myself and non-negotiables for myself, um, that goes into my even decision of going to a school in the first place, I guess. So I have those in the back of my head at all times. Like, is this a place where the values that I value are they going to be, am I going to be able to hold those at my priority at all times? We're here to serve the athletes, so that's also just a common, like, consistent thing between, myself, the sport coaches, and I guess the weight room rules or my director. Um, it's not really answering your question, to be honest, but you just kind of have to take it, case by case. Like, my standards are always going to be my standards. The weight room standards are always going to be the weight room standards. Those are going to be the two that I have to follow at all times. The sport coaches, um, yeah, I don't know. It's a really good question. I'm struggling to answer it because it's just something you gotta take case by case, I guess.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of a loaded question too because it really is case by case, and even similar situations are going to be handled differently just based off of all the kind of factors that come into place and then how much of an overlap there are with some of those standards and expectations too. At the end of the day, like you have what none of these things are really rigid. Like outside of a couple of like real non-negotiables or stuff that's like going to get anybody hurt or in trouble. Like everything else is like up to some interpretation. There might be a little bit of gray area. And like you said, it's case by case. But it's interesting to kind of see how it handles because I think it's super valuable advice for any coach coming up or anybody else that hasn't really maybe doesn't interact with coaches as often, like at a lower level, or has so many teams that they're not involved in certain meetings. Because these things can kind of pop up. And when you're talking to coaches all the time and trying to like help shape the culture of a team, like constant communication and being on the same page with the sport coach and making sure that people are kind of falling in line, like is super important, especially coming in new so that you kind of start to get a grasp of what that team looks like. You talk about kind of the teams that like you're working with now, obviously like especially like the last decade, even longer, like to anybody that's been in baseball, like that culture of training has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. And we've seen like an uproar and like uptick of college baseball strength coaches being tied to just one sport. We've seen like professional baseball at like every single level, all the way up to majors, like add more staff and shown the importance of like being bigger, faster, stronger, like having constant development. But you also have some sports too that like it might not be the highest priority, like with track, cross country, and swim. How do you kind of try to interject and put some of like that training and like work ethic into their sport without kind of overdoing it? Because at the end of the day, they want to be successful at their sport, but they're also, you might have like one or two meatheads, but it's not like 50% down, like would ride or die come into the weight room, unless that's what you got over there. But how do you kind of start at least building a little bit more of that buy-in and tie-in to like performance from the weight room to their sport?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of it just comes to, like, first off, caring about your athlete, like getting to know them in some way. Um, I connect really well with the baseball team because I played baseball. Like, they respect that right away. My cross country runners, I tell them like I could, barely run a couple miles. Like, there's not a chance that, I'm running what they run in a week. Like, I mean, I mentally could do it, like if I, really tried to, but I'm just not going to. So like there's that, side of it already that's like I don't understand what they're going through on a week to week basis. So it's, spending time with them, spending time with the coaches, showing them that I care in other ways, showing up to a meet, showing up to, a practice here and there. And then just in the weight room, it's like me trying to learn from them as much as I'm trying to teach them. So like education goes both ways. Like I can ask them questions like, hey, um, how can I do this better? Is there something that you think, might need to be added into the program? And then on my side of it, I can educate them and try to connect it to their sport in some ways. Um, and then that it just kind of goes back and forth that way. So yeah, for the sports that like I'm not super familiar with, that's how I have to go about doing it because I'm not the smartest one when it comes to, track strength and conditioning by any means. And so it just it goes back and forth of like trying to get to know them, show them that I care about them, then it's not just like one of those sports that I just have to work with. Um, so that's probably the big thing is just education both ways, showing that you care, trying to be there for them.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it too. Like that stuff goes a long way, especially with those sports that feel like they've always been kind of pushed aside or they're an afterthought when it comes to the weight room. And it's sometimes it is justified, like where you see it at some places where either their coach doesn't really care enough to like put him in there more often, or the players aren't invested in either what the program looks like or thinking that the weight room is actually beneficial to them, or they think the coach doesn't really understand or respect what they do, like whatever kind of reasoning like they want to come up with. But you have seen like those sports because they're not in as often as like a baseball team, a football team, like a contact sport, or some of these other sports that are coming up that just value the weight room like in a little different light. They feel like, oh, well, I don't really have to do this or I don't really have to be there. But going to meets, asking them like how the program is working for them, like what needs to be added, like what they kind of get value from. Like you said, education's a two-way street. Being able to kind of converse with them and speak their language has got to go a long way. And showing up for them too is big. And those games, those matches, like those meets are very different atmosphere, but going to those and showing up like has got to go a long way with those kids that have probably never really had a coach like in high school, probably too. A lot of those sports don't start training maybe seriously or taking it seriously until college coach. So I mean, have you seen that in any way or have any like kind of stories of that where like there's been a turnaround or kind of like a light bulb moment with those sports that really kind of got them more invested in training with you?
Yeah, I think like so I'll use a really good example. My swim team here and actually my tennis team back at Wichita. Like at tennis at Wichita, I was told they didn't really enjoy going into the weight room. This was just what the head coach had told me about the girls. Um, this was before I even met any of the girls. He's like, just a heads up, like they don't necessarily like the weight room. It's a lot of foreign athletes, like they just don't really care that much. And so I immediately from day one, like tried to make it an enjoyable experience. Like the way that I was going to coach them wasn't necessarily going to be like this, you know, drill sergeant, maybe the same way that I would coach baseball. It was, you know, still having expectations, but trying to make things more fun, like play some games, let them choose the music, like things along those lines. And I tried to go to practice whenever I could. And whenever they would see me at practice, like they would freak out, or like for swim, for example, like we have the pool here is like right across from the weight room, and they only have like one or two home meets a year. And the way that my schedule is like I'm super busy the back half of the day. And it just so happened to be that the swim meet was during that super busy chunk of my day. I was able to squeeze out for like 15 minutes, poked my head into the pool, and the team saw me from like they were on the pool deck and I was in the stands, and they like started waving at me and yelling at me in the middle of the meet. And it was just like one of those things where it's like, you know, showing up for 15 minutes is something that, not everybody does, but it's just that little bit of effort um, that really can make them want to, put effort into the weight room. So, um, and again, just having like that coach's feel too, where it's like, yes, we have maybe, a structured plan or program or whatever it is, but, understanding the athlete maybe a little bit like baseball, I understand a little bit more than, some of the other sports of like what they go through on a day-to-day basis of practice and stuff, but being able to be flexible with it, like knowing that, cutting a set here and there or, giving them, the ability to choose what mobility they want to do for the day, like that kind of autonomy goes a long ways too.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, it's awesome that that coach kind of gave you, without kind of giving you the whole picture of what it was, at least gave you a heads up of like maybe how to frame those conversations. And like, you might do the exact same program that you would have done without having that conversation, but the tone and maybe the verbiage or how you actually had that first conversation with them, how you explain things about the program, how you kind of ran the session, or like you said too, like just the autonomy and like those small little things like letting them control the music and stuff like that, rather than just assuming that they're going to value the weight room the same as a baseball program that like in a way probably looks up to you and respects you like just right off the bat. You look like a baseball player, you played baseball, like your resume kind of like screams baseball more so than, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about swimming. But you show up to a swim meet, like you take time out of your day, you like probably play like some EDM and stuff for the tennis girls because like they don't want to necessarily listen to everything that's happening here. They want to hear something from like their home country or something. Uh, that, I mean, that gets them more involved. That gets them kind of energized and excited. Maybe not to train, but to be in the weight room and be a little bit more flexible with what you're going to do that training session. So that's great advice for people because without having that experience and those interactions with the coach and those conversations, like a young coach might be just super rigid. Like, I got to run this plan. Like, this is what I got to do. It's got to be done this way, like super meticulous. But I think as you get older and you get a little bit more wiser and gain that experience with so many different teams too over your career, you become a little bit less worried about how strict you are with the program because the work is going to get done.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Like, I mean, yeah, if your goal is to, build somebody's lower body strength, whatever it is, you can do so many different things to get lower body strength. Like, it doesn't have to be just a standard back squat, something along those lines. But yeah, I love that piece of it because you can be creative as a coach that way instead of following the exact same plan over and over and over again. And each team, even year to year, can be completely different, like with the personalities and everything. And to speak on that music thing too, that was something I actually did every day was, so we had so many different like girls from different countries. It was always like, all right, you pick an artist from your country today. Next girl, pick an artist from their country. So that was kind of a cool thing that we actually did every day.
There you go. I like that. It's always fun to kind of let them have a little bit of that and kind of bring it. And then it also opens up not only the training session and like there's a positive energy to it, but the rest of the team kind of gets to know about that athlete a little bit more and kind of their nationality and everything too. I mean, we've done it with even mostly like American guys too, like for baseball and stuff. Like with one year we had a playlist that was just everyone's walkout song.
Oh, cool.
So you just run with that and hear the full walkout song. So it was just something fun to kind of put together and it was like default. No one can agree what music it is. It's everyone's walkout song. So I hope this CD doesn't suck.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I like that.
Hey, so you talk a little bit too about like that creative side and then working with different teams now. And then obviously you can't play every single sport growing up and you're going to be kind of biased to whatever you enjoy as an athlete before you get to become a coach. But the cool thing when you're a coach is if you're still training, you're always kind of creative with your own programming and trying to figure out like what is actually going to be best for your athletes. How do you kind of like approach your training like coming out of your collegiate baseball career? Like, is it still kind of driven by some of the principles you were doing as an athlete, or are you kind of like evolving that just based off of what you're kind of infatuated with and learning about now?
So it's a little bit of both. Like when I when I first started coaching, um, so yeah, and I guess in college I followed a program my entire career, right? Like I had a strength coach, followed his program. When I got done at UIC and went to Denver, how I continued to learn and train was to do other people's programs. So I would always do like the full-time staff's programs for a while to get a better understanding of what a program looked like outside of the one that I'd been running for the last 6 years. And so it helped me learn, but also helped me train. And so then when I got my first full-time job, it was not very sustainable, but I was essentially doing all of my athletes' programs, a week in advance. So like I was training a ton because I was like, okay, I need to try out volleyball's program. I need to try out basketball's program. I need to try out tennis's program just to like get a feel for it. Because that was my first full-time job. I was like, I don't want to mess this up. I want to see like how it feels. Um, and yeah, I think that it just gives me good self-awareness, like as a coach. It helps me, I guess, kind of inform like my understanding of, cueing, fatigue, expectations that I can have for my athletes, things along those lines. Um, and so, yeah, that I guess, first job at ORU, I was just constantly running multiple programs that I was writing for my athletes, just to kind of get a feel for it. And then once I got like I guess kind of a fairly set structure of how I go about my training. Like my sports are different, obviously, but there's a lot of similarities between the sports. And I always like to say that I like to train qualities, not necessarily like, a specific sport. Like within each sport, there's going to be different qualities, and I'm trying to train specific qualities within those. But so once I kind of got that structure of how I like want to program, then I kind of went off the rails a little bit and just was like trying out a bunch of different random things that I would find on social media. And again, like that's not any way that I would tell my athletes to, train. Like I wasn't necessarily going towards a specific goal, but that wasn't my point. Like I wasn't trying to, be the best squatter or, train for a specific thing. I just wanted to try out as many different things as I could, different methods, different principles, buy programs from different people just to like test out different things. And then pick what I liked and then throw away what I didn't like. Or it would lead me down another route of trying to learn more information about, a given thing. So I kind of did that for a couple years as well. And then when I was at Wichita, I pretty much just ran the baseball program. I got to the point where I was like, you know what? Like I want to like train hard again. I want to be athletic. Like, so I just ran what I gave the guys. And I mean, it made me pretty athletic in my opinion. Like I was jumping well, I was sprinting, just strong in general. So it kind of just depends for me. Like if I'm in like an area where I feel like I want to continue to learn, then I'll just throw a bunch of random stuff at myself and learn that way. If I, want to train for a while on like getting back to being super athletic, then I'll have more of a structure with my plan in my own program. So it kind of changes all the time, really.
That's a good way to do it too, though, because for coaches, unless you're training for like a specific goal, it doesn't seem like you ever really have an off season because I mean, you're always in the weight room. You enjoy training. That's a big reason why people get into coaching too is like you want to be doing something, but sometimes it's just misguided or you're just like either redlining it all the time because you don't know what to do. But it's nice that like you're kind of finding like almost a chunk of time to just be curious and explore different things. And then inevitably, everything that you learned, you either go down a rabbit hole for it or you start to see how you can implement that best within a certain team's program, run that program, and then move off to another kind of experimental phase again, where you're running something else to pick the best things out of it. It's a good approach to do it. And at least I'm sure that probably keeps you engaged a little bit more and it keeps training fun, which is, I think, a big piece that a lot of people end up missing and what can kind of make training like super grinding. Do you see that at all with like, again, like your baseball is a year-round sport. All the sports in college are year-round sports, but like even all your other ones, cross country, track, swim, they're Olympic sports too. So these athletes are going to be training year long. So like with that in mind, like trying to keep stuff fun and also try to find those best times for the off season, how do you kind of approach like allowing them to have a little autonomy, a little bit of time off, but also still make sure that they're still progressing or it's a calculated kind of lower period within their ultimate like annual training plan.
Yeah, that's hard too. Certain sports like track are going to be a little bit more structured. They're going to be a little bit easier to, say we've got meets, these specific days, and then really the summer is most of my athletes aren't going to be competing during the summer, so there's a little bit easier for track. For baseball, some would argue that the summer's even more grueling than the spring, depending on which league you play in. Um, so that kind of depends on each athlete too. Like we're gonna have, I know that we're gonna have a decent chunk of time in the fall, because it'll be our 8 hour period to like really train hard. We'll have Christmas break, which I'm hoping that they train hard over Christmas break, and then in the spring is, push it when we can, obviously maintain where we can. And then the summer, it's like each athlete, I kind of talk to them like, all right, what is your plan for the summer? Like, are you, playing 60 plus games in the Northwoods, or are you going to stick around with me and train really hard? And then based on that, that's kind of um, how we go about doing it. So some athletes might get, you know, 12 weeks where they can really train hard, and some might only get a couple. Um, but it's just we just kind of have to work around the specific schedules that they have. So for the ones that you have the longer time frame with, you can obviously, push it a little bit harder, make things a little bit more fun, creative if they're around. The ones that are playing more regularly still during the summer, like you just stick to the basics and hammer the basics as much as you can. Try to be flexible with it and try to give them some stimulus as much as you can without trashing them for, the sport.
Yeah, that summer ball schedule can get super wild, and sometimes you don't even know until the day. Like, I know there's a couple places I was at. I didn't even know guys were at certain summer balls until they got there. It's like, oh yeah, he changed leagues. He's going there. Okay. Well, what's that league look like? Well, it was like, well, they're already in the middle of season. They're already playing 45 games. I was like, how many games is he in? I don't know where he is. It all depends on like when you finish and where they're going. It's a weird kind of structure if you're not used to that initially. But obviously being in baseball, you kind of are super familiar with that. Since your time all in baseball, like you've been at different places, obviously different conferences, different kind of maybe competitive levels and stuff like, but the similarities got to outweigh the differences when it comes to working with all these like different Division I baseball programs. Like, what do you think is maybe the biggest difference when it actually comes to working with these different programs? Is it really just dependent based off the coach, or like do you see a significant skill level maybe outside of what's actually occurring on the field? Like, what do you see differently within like the confines of the weight room at these different places?
Um, I don't know. I think you're right. There are a lot of similarities between teams, even from like the teams that I was a part of. I always like to compare like the teams that I was on with like the different teams that I coach and just be like, oh, like when I talk to my friends, I'm like, oh, we've got these guys that would have, been starters on our team, whatever, that kind of thing. And I really think like the general athleticism, um, like at Wichita was really, really good. Like we had some insane guys, like guys that were jumping some insane numbers on like, I mean, we had a jump mat, so you can kind of skew that a little bit, how you jump and land and everything like that. But like we had like 50-inch jumpers on a jump mat. We didn't have the force plates at the time. I would have loved to see them jump on a force plate. But same guys were obviously running like sub 110 flies. Like just a lot of our athletes were, pretty freaky. Um, at UIC, it's not quite like that. Um, but there's definitely some that are pretty good. And then that just kind of makes it more fun for me because it gives me, that challenge of like, okay, these are guys that I can tell have it in them. We just need to continue to train them and, push certain buttons to get them to maybe those freakier level of athleticism. But they're still all really good baseball players. Like that's the cool thing about baseball is like you don't have to be the best athlete. Like you could be, some like bad body player, but still throw 100 miles an hour or hit the ball 450 feet. So, um, yeah, it's kind of fun that way. Like there's still going to be good baseball players regardless, but sometimes the general athleticism is a little bit different at certain schools, and you can see that with like the Power Five schools, like the big schools. Like they're usually just a little bit bigger, a little bit faster, a little bit twitchier, just all across the board. But um, in baseball, anyone can win on any given day. So.
Right. And it was interesting too, because when you would come in when I was still at North Florida, and then I think it was the day after, or maybe that morning, like I had Virginia come in too. So it was like I'm looking, I'm like, oh, here's a perfect, like you want to do a study? Take my guys, look at your Wichita guys at the time, look at the VA guys, like just across the board, and you're like, okay, sizing, kind of makeup, like coaching style, conference. It's super interesting, and they play the same sport. So, and but again, anybody can win on any of those days. So it was for me, it was interesting because I'm just sitting back watching it. You're focused on coaching, other coaches focused on coaching, and I'm sitting back just kind of like interested to see how all this plays out in a sport that like outside of what I've coached, I didn't play a lot of. So I can kind of be a little bit more objective and see what's happening from an outside view, which is cool. Is coming back to UIC like full circle with everything. A lot of guys end up either trying to seek to come back to their alma mater. It might not always be everyone's choice, but obviously you're there and you're coaching like your old team. Like, does it mean any more to you? Is it like a little bit more special for you to kind of get to be helping influence and shape the team off the diamond, like because you're getting guys prepared for those games. Or is it kind of nostalgic in any way? Like, because some guys never get to experience that going back to a place.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely means a ton to me. It was funny. My dad was actually in town a couple weeks ago, and we played catch on the field together. And we were talking, and I was like, "Dad, like we would have never thought I would have been playing catch here again. Like the last time we had played, actually, it's funny. My brother was my teammate in college, and my uncle was the head coach. So we spent a lot of time around UIC growing up and everything like that. So it was just funny. Like once I left, my uncle retired, my brother graduated. We were like, well, we'll probably never go back to UIC and step foot on the field again. But sure enough, here we are again. So yeah, I mean, it means a ton to me. Like I won a couple of conference championships here. You know, got to do a lot of fun things here. I mean, I grew up as a person, as a man, here. So just like being back, like there's a lot of good memories and a lot of good things. And so it's sweet being able to be here and help out with the next generation of, UIC baseball players. Um, and so a lot of these guys too, they're curious. Like they want to know what it takes to win championships. Like they all want to win championships, and they haven't won one here since when I was here. And so it's like they ask questions about like, what were things like back then? Like what did you guys do? And so it's fun to tell those kinds of stories. I mean, they obviously like look up my stats and like look up videos and things like that of like me playing, and they, put them on the TV in our weight room just like as a joke, stuff like that. So it's like it's fun. And it's good to be back here and like, you know, like it's weird to think too, like I'm actually sitting right now in our study hall room. Um, I did so many hours of study hall in this room. But yeah, now I'm coaching in this building too. So I just have a ton of good memories. Obviously, I would bat boy for the team as a kid. Um, you know, yeah, it's hard to describe, honestly. Like it's really cool to be back here.
Damn, that no, that's pretty cool. I didn't realize it was that deep, kind of embedded in your history and like within the family and everything too, more so than just your time in college. So. Definitely has got to mean a lot more to you. I mean, just like every coach is excited about their athletes to go out and be competitive and like they like wearing that logo and being a part of the team like that. It's just it means a little bit more to you. So it's kind of cool to see you back in that position and hopefully you guys are ready to dominate this upcoming spring. But that's awesome, Alex. Hey, well, like any good training session, we got to end the show with a finisher. So I got 4 quarters, 4 questions, and maybe a little bit of extra innings at the back end. But you can go rapid fire and or you can expand on any of them. But you ready for the first one?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, first one I got for you. Biggest influence in strength and conditioning and favorite baseball player growing up.
Biggest influence, I already kind of talked about him, but Nick Zostadas. He's this like, I mean, back when he was coaching me, he's like this grizzly bear looking like guy, like tattoos, long beard, like the classic like strength coach. But he would just love you. Like he would just like want to give you a hug almost. But he was like such a good coach. Obviously, like, he helped me, get my internship at Marquette and he just taught me so much. And like I said, I talked to him the other day on the phone. Like we're still, good friends and he's an amazing guy. And then my favorite baseball player was Curtis Granderson growing up, which again is kind of bias because he played at UIC. So, um, yeah, he's the most well-known person from UIC, I would say too. He donated a ton of money to our facilities here, and he's still around. Like he's very active, like at UIC, and does a ton for the program. He probably doesn't know that I, wore his 28 jersey growing up from 10 and under all the way until I got to college. And since it was retired, I couldn't wear it, so I had to wear 29. But yeah, Curtis was definitely my number one.
That's awesome. Hey, so when you're not coaching, you're kind of outside of the weight room walls. What are some of your kind of go-to hobbies?
So I like to read. Um, Not a ton other than the Bible right now, which is obviously a huge thing. But I like to read faith-based books, sports performance here and there. But that's usually like a big thing of mine is just reading. I like to golf, terrible golfer, but still like to go out there. And then just hang out with my family. Like that was a big reason why I came back to Chicago. My fiance lives here, her family's here, my brother lives here. So just hanging out with my brother, hanging out with my fiance and my future nephews, things like that. It's it's a huge part of my life.
There you go. Hey, so if you weren't coaching, what do you think you might be doing as a profession, if things kind of worked out differently for you?
So that's like an icebreaker question, like a random thing I would do. I'd probably be a scuba dive instructor. Super random, but my dad and I got scuba certified when we were younger, and I mean I absolutely love it. Otherwise, it'd be like on a more serious note, it'd be ministry of some sort, whether that's in some sort of like Christian athlete organization, something like that. That's probably where what I would do.
Okay, scuba divers definitely the first I've heard anybody say,
Yeah.
so that's a cool one. Hey, so I know everybody's gone for winter break pretty much at this point, so you probably got the weight room to yourself. So this one might be just a shoe-in question. Ideal training day. What's playing on the speakers and what's your favorite post-training meal look like?
Oh, so again, I'm a worship music kind of guy. It doesn't matter what I'm doing training wise. Um, there's just the weight room. I listen to so many different genres of music that the worship music is just something that never gets played, and I love it so much. So it doesn't matter if I'm squatting, if I'm just going on a run or biking or anything like that. Like I'll toss that on. Post workout meal. Um, I'll always have a protein shake regardless. But this morning I had eggs. I switched up my training a little bit when I trained, so I got an early morning lift in, so I had my breakfast. The usual breakfast for me is eggs and some sort of meat to go with that, like an English muffin or something with some peanut butter, some Greek yogurt, milk. Just I love breakfast. Breakfast is my favorite meal for sure.
There we go. Hey, so last one I got for you for this overtime extra inning segment. What is kind of your favorite part of coaching? And then is it different from also your favorite part of competing when you were a baseball athlete?
I think my favorite part of coaching is actually watching my athletes compete. Um, I think like we get to have like a small piece of like their training that obviously goes into what is probably their most important thing of their life, top five for sure, most important things of their lives. So getting to watch them out there compete, whatever their sport is, I think is the most cool thing. Like I get chills watching my athletes compete, even if it's a sport I never played in. Um, and as an athlete, that's tough. Like I loved competition. Like I love, game days, that kind of thing. Um, but I'm someone that doesn't really remember much about any of the games that I played. And like I played in some big games. Like sure, I'll probably remember, conference championships, things like that. Um, but like the super late night hitting sessions with my teammates, things like that, where we just like, are at our apartments and we're just like, we're bored, let's go hit, like at 11 o'clock midnight, something like that. Like those are the moments that I'll for sure remember. Or like you know, I guess like the week before school starts coming back in January when there's no school and you're inside, you're basically going to the rec and just like hammering arms like in your free time, like things like that, I think like are what I remember most as an athlete and that were the most enjoyable.
Oh, for sure. I know a lot of coaches miss those times too, like that camaraderie and everybody kind of being there for the greater good of the team. And it's such a fun experience. And I love to tell that to like all my old like spring and fall sport athletes, like fall, you're always, how sweet is it to still be playing after Thanksgiving when all you have to worry about is your sport? And then same with like any of those spring sports, like you want to keep playing through the summer. You want to be
Oh
here
yeah.
as long as you can during the summer, and you don't even have to worry about school at that point. You get to just play your sport. So definitely a cool experience. And I mean, as a coach, as much as I thought being an athlete, like that stuff wouldn't get topped. Like obviously, like teammates and those fun times are great, but getting to watch your athletes like see the importance of it, I think it's just kind of retrospectively looking back and like wishing that you would have like lived in that moment a little bit more, like when you were younger. Now you get to kind of see them and see the importance of it and see them like really enjoy it and be competitive and see that spark. So definitely a cool experience. Hey, well, Alex, I appreciate your time today, man. For anybody that's got any follow-up questions and stuff for you, obviously, as we get these study hall lights back on. Yeah. I can't believe it still doesn't see you. Hey, but for anybody that's got any follow-up questions for you, want to reach out, want to follow along what you guys got going over at UIC as well, how can they get a hold of you?
Right now the best way is just by email. I have Instagram, but I don't actually go on it anymore. It's not even on my phone. Yeah, it's just a distraction to me in this time of my life. So, um, yeah, I don't even go on there. You could probably follow me and message me. I might not get back to you for a couple weeks, but email is probably the best for me. Yeah, that's about it.
Awesome, man. Well, like I said, I appreciate it. Like I said, as we're recording right now, getting ready for the holidays. So I hope you have a great holiday, man, and really good luck this first like season back as a coach at UIC. Hopefully, hopefully working towards some conference championships this coming year. But good luck, man, and appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Nick.
That's it for this episode of The Strength Game. Thank you again to this week's guest and to our sponsors. Be sure to connect and keep up with our guests at the links in the description below. Remember to subscribe to us on Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast provider to stay up to date on all future episodes. Also, check us out on YouTube and CoachO'Brien.com, where you can find all the video versions of these episodes, as well as show notes, episode schedule, and much more. Comments, ratings, and reviews are always welcome and appreciated. Thanks again for tuning in, and be sure to join us next week for another great episode of The Strength Game.